No time, they say, is too late to do the right thing. After much anticipation and anxiety, President Muhammadu Buhari had received the final reports of the forensic audits of the Niger Delta Development Commission, NDDC. The Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, who presented the document conveyed in sacks to the President, said the forensic audits covered 13,777 contracts awarded from 2001 to 2019 at a final contract value of over 3 trillion naira. I was afraid to say tell you that amount from 2001 to 2019 and a final contract value of over 3 trillion naira. Let's share the story with you.
The future of the Niger Delta Development Commission is largely dependent on inculating forensic reports into all its projects since inception, presented to the President. Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Godswill Akpabio, who handed over the report to the minister, says that 13,777 contracts for projects and programs were awarded to contractors and consultants in all Niger Delta states from 2001 to August 2019 at a total final contract value of over 3.2 trillion naira. He noted that the intention of the exercise is not to witch hunt anybody, but to correct the mistakes of the past. Rather, the report identified the number of beneficiary companies. The exact status of all contracts were established, while funding gaps, irregularities, and mismanagement were observed. It was also established that no state had made payment in terms of ecological funds, including the federal government. The exercise, carried out by over 390 personnel, took place in 16 states in the Federation.
The intention of this exercise is not to witch hunt anybody or any organization. The intention had always been to correct the wrongs of the past. The people wanted to know what was happening. How come trillions are entering NDDC and they had little or no 5-kilometer dualized road to show? In fact, even the headquarters building that was started in 1994-95 could not be completed in 19 years. Outside that, they stayed in a rented apartment where they were paying over 300 million a year.
Operations of the Commission should be totally computerized. Reconciliation of all 362 bank accounts of the NDDC and to establish the presence or absence overcharges by various banks involved. All converted NDDC projects should be recovered from individuals and put to the use for its intended purpose. The Commission should adopt a standard for contract with appropriate profit margin, 25% recommended. All salaries and allowances of the Commission should be reconstructed to reflect that of similar agencies and Commission. All staff active or retired who are involved in the issues of contract splitting, conflict of interest, contract execution, overpayment without due process should be made to account for their actions. Effort should be made to reconcile and recover the sum of $4 billion as standard 3% contribution from oil companies. Practice of mobilization payments should be abolished.
These administrations.
On his part, Minister of Justice Abubakar Malami says the recommendations from the report will be considered and implemented.
The report on the forensic audit of the NDDC annual recommendations will therefore be critically analyzed for necessary action and implementation. We owe it a duty to the people of the Niger Delta region to improve their standard of living through the provision of adequate infrastructural and socio-economic development.
The federal government will consequently apply the law to remedy the deficiencies outlined in the audit report as appropriate. This will include initiation of criminal investigations, prosecution, recovery of funds not properly utilized for public purposes, review of the laws and reposition, and the restructure of the NDDC for effective or better service delivery. Celestina Iria, TVC News, Abuja.
All right. 13,777 contracts awarded between 2001 to 2019, and the final value of over 3 trillion naira. And anything that has to do with NDDC, since we've been monitoring their public hearing and everything, I've just made up my mind that nothing is going to come as a surprise. Babajide?
Yes, and I think that forensic auditing of NDDC should be a continuous process. It should also include even the period of the current minister, because so many nasty things happened, and we saw plenty of drama. People fainting in public in a manner that suggested that it was contrived. So Nigerians are worried. The administration of President Buhari has spent 6 years in office now, more than 6 years. And during this period, for example, the East-West Road that had been abandoned for years remains pitiably uncompleted. Not because NDDC had not been funded. It had been funded. The president did his bit by even going ahead to give the people what they wanted. Give them a minister to superintend over the affairs of the NDDC. But has that stopped the sleaze going on there? The answer is no. Even during COVID-19, at the height of the COVID pandemic, we saw a lot of nasty things going on at NDDC.
Like sharing of relief materials.
Even claiming that they were executing contracts at a time when people were supposed to be indoors. And humongous sums of money being released to that effect, especially the silting contracts. One of the ways by which money gets stolen in NDDC is the frivolous award of so-called desilting contracts. At the end of the day, you discover that nothing was desilted. So the commission has become like a cesspool of corruption that serious steps, we now need to take serious steps to change the situation of things over there. The president made a promise that people indicted will not be allowed to go unpunished. I want to believe that this time around, this is not just a mere threat.
And this report will not get us anywhere.
We want to see those people prosecuted, including those who were involved in corruption of the last 1 or 2 years at NDDC. Not just
the audit should be a yearly thing, so that
let us be able to identify, because as we are trying to stop to punish corruption that happened in the past, some stubborn and corrupt individuals are still getting involved in corruption.
They are getting more.
Yes, more. That is why it has to be a continuous thing. Let's put them on trial. Let's make examples of these people. If we don't do that, we are just wasting our time, because we won't solve the problem.
Emeka, if you've been to the Niger Delta, if you've been to a place like Bayelsa State, and you travel on speedboat from Bayelsa, from Yendugoa to like a place like Okpoma, like 6 hours on speedboat, that's where the Minister of Petroleum is from. Minister of State for Petroleum. You travel by speedboat, you see these communities and you see everything. You'll be thinking that, oh, these are people that government, they are forgotten over time.
Of course. Very well.
That's what you think when you now see how much has been given to NDDC, presided over by Niger Deltans.
Yes, I schooled in the Niger Delta. I spent a lot of years in Niger Delta, and I know for sure that, I had that feeling that NDDC will come to a disastrous end. When I was one of those that opposed the setting up of NDDC, but of course people were shouting no, and the Niger Delta needs a special commission, and I asked why. When we are talking of Revenue Allocation Act, people have been talking of that it should be restructured so that the states will be more responsible to their people. Local government should be more responsible to their people. But what do we have? You have all kinds of interventionist agencies that keep taking funds and frittering them away, and the states are crying, for lack of funds. Yes, I know that there is heavy corruption, huge corruption in the states, but at the same time, you see these interventionist agencies, I don't see the use, what their use is. You have a Ministry of Niger Delta, you have a Niger Delta Development Commission, then the states also have their own development commissions. All this is just, these are just conduits for, for criminal diversion.
Because you've not seen the impact of all these intervention agencies directly on people.
I travel around I travel to Niger Delta from time to time, and it is shameful. I have been stuck in traffic on that east-west road around 2 a.m. It was terrible. I had to take a bike. We were wading through pools of water in the dead of the night, and people were stuck in their cars, trucks, and all of that for me to get to where I was going to. It was so bad. And I said, but you have a state, you have agencies, federal agencies, there's a state government in this place. The entire Niger Delta is a pity what has been done to the Niger Delta. I mean, so many lives have been lost, in agitations. Look at sickness, no water to drink, nothing. The people have been virtually ripped off. So the thing is this, the people must stand up and say, this NDDC should be scrapped, because I want to know, President Buhari has just less than 2 years to live. Within what time are they going to trace all these criminals, the people I mentioned, and prosecute them? You know how slow our judicial system is. When will we, unless they are going to set up maybe special courts to try these malfeasance? Otherwise, if it's through the regular judicial system, I don't see anything coming out of it.
Okay. I have Kolawole Johnson joining us from our Abuja studio. Kolawole Johnson was an active participant during the public hearing of this commission. Kolawole, what do you make of the submission of this report?
It's good to be hanging out again after over 1 year.
Yeah. Nice to have you, Kola.
Good to be here. Thank you. First of all, I think the report, based on the snippet out, perhaps has only confirmed part of the things that we've been saying to the public in the last 3 years. Beyond that, the questions I think we asked ourselves in the stakeholders meeting yesterday, some NGOs coming together, was the fact that the content of this report, when will it be made public? Because we also have our facts and figures. There is a need for us to compare what we have against what the report contains. Why? At initial, there were hue and cry that the forensic audit was only a political exercise.
Yes.
Just like the last speaker said, that perhaps we may not get anything out of the forensic report. Why? Because from the very beginning, remember, even when they said the audit was ongoing, we came out to say that there was no audit ongoing for over 1 year. Not until the president had to make that happen through the Federal Executive Council. So we suspect strongly that even at this stage, we may just end up with something that will not amount to anything. However, we want to give the benefit of doubt, not just to the government, not just to the Minister of Justice, but also to the Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, so that the content of the report, one, can be published, we can all see, and also push for the prosecution of everyone involved. That said, now, is anything a surprise that we have seen thus far, those snippets we've gotten? Absolutely nothing. There is no surprise there. We should only be going ahead to say that if the audit covered between 2001 and 2019, so what happens to 2019 to 2021? At least, if we are going after those who stole long ago, what exactly are we doing to those who stole right under the nose of Mr. President? I remember that when we started this agitation, nobody took us serious until it got to a state that the National Assembly had to institute a probe panel. Now, during that probe, the president said clearly that he was going to wait for the report of the National Assembly to act. The report came out, it was submitted to him. It was so unfortunate that Mr. President did nothing. And let me say here that one of the things that gave us the zeal to go all the way then was the fact that we had the hope that Mr. President was going to act, because he has been known for his anti-corruption stand. However, when the report, let's assume that all the documents we brought, that the state, was too lazy to act on them. How about the report of the National Assembly? Now, it is on record that even when those who were involved, the last interim committee, when they sacked them from office, it's on record that they were not sacked on the strength of any allegation of corruption. They used a flimsy court case or court injunction to oust those guys. Now, that may score for us the fact that the government maybe will not do anything about this report if the one that happened right under their nose. If that was swept under the carpet. But there is something again that should come to our attention, is the fact that, see, we have been saying that monies are given to the Niger Deltans. Of course, it is true that people from the area so pretend over the commission, but don't leave the fact. We can prove that. I'm saying it on national TV, that most of this money, or a large chunk of this fund, find its way back to Abuja, where they slice and share it.
Thank you,
it will shock you to know that those
Thank you for your brief intervention
over the commission, because they want to remain in office, a lot of times they have to service the Abuja cabal. So you will find out that most of the fund that should work for the people come back to Abuja here. In fact, as a matter of fact, it doesn't even leave Abuja here, because it is disbursed through the CBN. Through the banks here.
Okay, so let me put you on hold. Let me put you on hold there. Kolawole, Judy, this is not the first time I'm going to be seeing reports submitted. Nigeria even sat down in 2014. They had a national conference that had to do with all this, a new constitution, or how we're going to, stay together and everything. That report is gathering dust elsewhere now. So when I'm seeing this sack, this drama with sack and everything, the report of the over 13,777 Ghana must go contractors, I'm not impressed, because this might end up somewhere in no time.
Yes, it's part of what we are saying. There were both the Senate and the House of Reps investigated the NDDC. The Senate came up with its findings, and one of its findings was that the minister should stop supervising the affairs of the Niger Delta Development Commission, because by law it's supposed to be supervised by the presidency. The Senate advised the president in his report,
SGF office,
yes, that it should be sent back, that the supervision should go back to the SGF's office. They didn't say that for nothing. It was because of the findings. Because of their findings, they felt, look, even the idea of having the minister was not achieving the purpose for which
is meant to preside over the Niger Delta Ministry.
The president, what the president, yes, the president merely exercised his power to delegate That was what happened. By the act setting up the commission, it cannot be supervised by a minister. It's the presidency that should supervise it, and that act had not been amended. But the president merely exercised his right to delegate. But now it's now looking like fait accompli. So they are saying, no, don't do that. They also made some recommendations. Now, those recommendations, the president has not done anything about them. If we had an adversarial National Assembly during the time of Bola Saraki, and we now have a National Assembly that is ready to work with the president, cooperating with him, why disrespect them by allowing them to have weeks and weeks of investigation and choose not to do anything about it? So my own suggestion is that now that this forensic investigation has ended, the report is out, the president should take a second look, or to take a look, if he has not even had the first look, at the report of the Senate, so that those changes that the Senate recommended, we can make them happen. That will help us to get to the promised land as far as NDDC is concerned.
Implementation again. You said something that is almost 2 years to wind down in this administration. Just hoping that somebody will check. They submitted this thing, and I saw the Attorney General, that's Abubakar Malami, SAN, they would have streamlined this report and nominate people to be prosecuted, because you are not just talking about 3 trillion naira. You know what that kind of money can do.
6 trillion. And Nigeria was looking for, I mean, how much was the budget last year? So imagine if 6 trillion had been truly spent in the Niger Delta, where the Niger Delta will be today. But I think the report from Akpabio, the report from the Senate, and all reports should be put together and given to maybe an independent organization like PwC to audit, to go through the reports and make sure. Yes,
we're just submitting.
No, let me tell you something. There are people already accusing Akpabio of engaging in a witch hunt, and don't forget, we are getting towards the political era. Politics, politicking is next year, so definitely that might even form a major issue going forward. What we're talking about is this. If you say that so and so and so, you have been identified, how do you now stop this thing from continuing? Because right now, as we're speaking, people are still looting the NDDC. So what needs to happen is this: the loopholes have to be identified. First of all, for me, I believe the commission should be scrapped. That is for me. But if you have to keep the commission, then what needs to happen is that you must block the loopholes. Supervision must be fixed in the proper place. And then again, unless you're going to set up special courts, our regular judicial process will not achieve anything.
Okay, Kolawole, finally on this, Kolawole, let me just ask you, way forward. You've been following the process, and now the report is out. What do you want to be implemented?
Of course, first, the terms of reference of the auditors was strictly auditing the last or the first 19 years of the agency. Now, it is to see what exactly transpired in terms of the money that has gone there, how they spent it, and how much of it have been stolen that we can recover. So to that extent, I mean, there is no much recommendation aside from saying that we should look at those facts and act on them. But I'm saying that beyond that, it appears we do not have the government resolve to even act decisively in such a case as this. Don't forget that in April 2020, when we started this, despite the allegations of corruption against the then interim committee, the president went ahead to extend their tenure by 6 months, despite personally writing to the president and explaining in fact, not just explaining, attaching document of fraud, of theft, of graft in the agency. Number one. Number two, in August, despite the death of the then director of finance, and they shouldn't even have been able to spend money as such. but monies were being spent. There was this day that over 7 billion naira left the coffer of the agency. Right when the probe was going on in the National Assembly, in a single day, they filter away about 9 billion naira. And we put this together and wrote to the president, but nothing was done. So for me, it is for us to appeal to the government to at least for once stand by one promise they made to Nigerians, that they will fight corruption and ensure that people are prosecuted. And beyond that, we should also ensure that presently we do not allow the place, to continue to be the cash cow of a few politicians. Let me give you a specific example. After the last interim committee left and a new sole administrator came on board, between December and April, I can give you papers here of the amount of money spent month by month. There was a layer between May and June, there was no money. But from the last few days of June to July, about 10 billion naira came in, additional 5 billion naira. You need to see also how this money, got filtered away. So while we are chasing after the shadow of those who had gone, we should not also take our eyes away from the present happenings in the place. Now, Jide says something that is very, very important, that the act setting up the place only gave the power to the president to supervise the place. It is even unlawful in the first instance. Such is not, such is not the power that can be delegated. So perhaps the president will need to sit down also and look at that. Let me respond very quickly to what the last speaker said, that we should scrap the place because of corruption. That means we should maybe scrap NNPC, NDDC, and every other commission. You can't scrap because there are loopholes.
All right.